cultural influence have grown up looking up into like how US breakfast are that either literally dessert or like fried stuff. But yeah. Hi, Fulcr's Yellow, welcome. Peruvian Peruvian breakfast. So, there is not like one staple, right? Like, not everyone will have. This will eat the same, obviously, but so like depending on what part of Peru you are, depending on what also hi Sam, welcome. Depending on what part of Peru you are, there will be like variations of tamales. So this is what the typical tamal looks like. I've eaten this. Yes, yes. I've eaten this on stream before. But these are not tamales. These are humitas, which are like tamales, but smaller. And sometimes they can be sweet and or they can be salty. And the salty ones are filled with like a string of cheese, or if they are sweet, they have like a little bit of dulce de leche, or we call it here um manjar blanco, which is literally the same. I don't know why most of Latin America calls it dulce de leche, but in Peru we call it manjar blanco. Yeah, we call it manjar blanco here, but most of Latin America calls it dulce de leche. I don't know why. Um, or rather, I don't know why we call it manjar blanco. I have no idea. But yeah. So this is like a solid staple of Peruvian breakfast, but like I typically have it on Sundays. I'm sure there are people who have it like more often. But yeah, in Mexico we call it cajeta. Interesting, which I think makes cuchi in Argentina interesting. Interesting. I didn't know that. Like I know in some parts of Mexico they still call it dulce de leche, but yeah, yeah. I don't know why they highlighted cuchi, but I mean, then this is not. This looks more like tacacho, but I won't explain that because that's not breakfast. Other than that, oh, we have also chicharrón. Well, I haven't had chicharrón in like years. Uh, but chicharrón is like this thing that I think it is something that came from Spanish cooking, Spanish cuisine. Because I know there are many versions of it across Latin America, or I'm pretty sure, but it's basically like pork. I don't know if fried. I don't know how exactly they do it, but it's pork, and we have it with fried sweet potatoes, and we call it salsa. This mixture of just onions, like red onion, chili, and lemon. Some people put like cilantro or culantro. See, I'm already dying. But yeah, so this is like your typical uh Peruvian breakfast. Also, of course, always with bread. That is like bread is like the signature thing that Spain gave to Latin America. Latin Americans will put everything in bread. Everything. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like exclusive to Latin America, but definitely like yeah. Well, at least in Mexico they will put everything in like a taco or in a burrito, right? Because they already had like a flour or a carbohydrate to put things on, but at least in South America, I don't know if we actually didn't have one, but at least that's we use bread, cause yeah, I'm pretty sure we didn't have one, cause at least in everything that was the incanato or like the part of, oh yeah, also in Mexico they call it torta, which means cake. They call like bread or like sandwiches torta, which means bread, which means cake. And I'm still like, this is torta. This is a torta. Okay? Mexican Spanish is just wrong. Okay? So yeah. Also, hi to lungs. Welcome. Carbohydrates are delicious. We put scrambled eggs in tacos for, yeah. See, like in Mexico they put in everything in tacos. Just the ones made with the French roll style. Oh, interesting. Interesting. But yeah, this is a torta. This is a sandwich with bread, with special bread, okay? But yeah. So yeah. Do I have something else for breakfast? What's a Peruvian breakfast like? Tamal, chicharrón. Um, I can't really think of anything else. Like bread. uh, so like, you know how in the US you have like peanut butter and jelly? At least in Peru, I don't. I'm pretty sure this is a normal combination, but we have like we use like butter and strawberry jam. Yeah, this is our. This is like the. This is our typical combination. So yeah, I can really think of another thing that is like common, like to drink. Typically, people typically have coffee, like an infusion, or oh, orange juice. I like orange juice better, but most people like the typical juice to have in breakfast is papaya juice. I don't know if papaya has a translation, but this is the papaya, and you just put it in the mixer and it becomes juice. But yeah, so yeah, that's like the typical um breakfast. No, the purple corn drink, which is chicha. Uh, we wouldn't have it. We wouldn't typically have it at breakfast. I know some people have it at breakfast, but when I think of breakfast, I don't think of chicha morada. Chicha is typically more for like lunch, you know. So yeah, and I like asterisk here. This is called well, technically This is called chicha morada, which means purple chicha. And this is like only chicha. But I just call this chicha because it's more common to drink this. But the original chicha is like a, I wouldn't say alcoholic, but it is a fermented drink that it is a fermented drink that you can basically get drunk on. And this is basically made from, I have no idea. It's fermented, yes. It's a fermented drink, and like this is, I don't know how to explain it because I don't know what is chicha. I don't know. It's a fermented or non-fermented beverage of Latin America, emerging in the Andes and Amazonia region in both pre and post Spanish conquest periods. Corn beer, made from a variety of maize landcruces, has been most common form of chicha. Yes, so it's basically corn, but yeah, but not the purple one. But yeah, but okay. So like I know that probably like older adults would have this, not necessarily a breakfast, but rather at every meal. So I wouldn't say that this is like a traditional breakfast exclusive. This is just a traditional drink with your meal exclusive, or even then just to get drunk exclusive. But yeah, I think that's it. Okay, enough about breakfast because I can't eat breakfast. Is to a fake. Interesting. Also, hi March, welcome. I don't know if I greeted you earlier. Only people in the capital do torta y tamal stuff. The rest of us just look in disgust. Oh my god. I had egg sandwiches every morning when I was in Peru. Interesting. I mean, that is, yeah. People like eggs, balls. Just kidding. But yeah, again, we put everything in bread, so it makes sense. But yeah. Okay. I guess since we're talking about Peru, I will talk about Peru. So like next month are the local elections, and we're going to be voting for mayors of our districts and stuff, you know. And I live in a district called Santiago de Surco, which is one of the most class diverse districts. I won't waste that much time. Oh my god, no. Santiago de Surco is literally big. Map. Also, I've literally shown my house before. Like, if someone wanted to know, first of all, if someone wanted to know where I live, they would already know. And two, literally all of y'all are not even in Peru, so I don't fucking care. So yeah, this is a map of Santiago de Surco, and like this is huge in comparison to like the other districts near Santiago, because like this little thing is Miraflores, this little thing is Barranco, this thing is La Victoria, this is San Isidro. Like, no, this is not even San Isidro. This is Santiago, but yeah. No Santiago. San Borja, but yeah. Can you say no? I won't say it. Also, it is weird to just come into a chat and say, "Can you say this?" Because no, I don't want to say it. But yeah, it is very big. But the thing that I wanted to mention is that it is very class divided because basically, literally all the upper half is is where rich people live, like rich people live, and basically the southern half is where poor people live. Me. Well, not poor people, but I mean, yeah, you know. Uh, and so it's been interesting seeing like the debates, and not the debates, but like the press conferences or the radio appearances of the people running and what are their um, action points, not action points, their policies. And it's honestly kind of sad that most of them are running for the same shit. Which, don't get me wrong, it's good because they all want to focus on making having less traffic and uh, reducing crime. But the way they want to reduce crime is like by um, training more cops. And I'm like, why? Why? More cops doesn't reduce crime. Like people steal regardless of if there is a cop or not. If people actually didn't need to steal things, they wouldn't be stealing them in the first place. You know? But yeah. Um so yeah. I think there's a guy who is running in my local election, which he used to be miedo. Scary. He used to be a congressman, and now they're smearing him because he's gay, apparently. Um, I obviously don't care, but also he's like pretty bourgeois, and by pretty I mean he's he's like a career politician, you know. He's been in like literally this is more reason for me to vote for him, but like Latin America is still pretty homophobic, so he's like he has a boyfriend, oh my god, he's gay, oh my god. And I'm like, I literally don't care. Also, allegedly he was a gigolo, so he was a sex worker. And people are like, oh my god, he paid for someone to have sex. And I'm like, yeah, support sex workers. Yeah, queen. Um, literally king shit. um, and so they're like trying to smear him like that. And I'm like, yes. But the truth is like, he's like pretty bourgeois. He's like pretty liberal. Literally in one of his like radio talk show interviews said, I am not a communist, but I'm going to better the lives of people. And I'm like, not the anti-communism shit, like literally completely irrelevant. Like literally no one, this guy shitting on socialism, not even communism, socialism. And I'm like, bleh, disgusting. Automatic L, literally. Like I am literally not voting for this guy, even though he has one policy that I am really interested in. But I am literally just not voting for him because he said that, and I'm like, fuck you, fuck you. Gay rights though, but fuck you. Uh, where rich people do anyway, whatever the fuck he wants. He yeah, but because he used to be the minister of labor, no, not labor, of housing. Yeah, we have a minister of housing, and he had a pretty successful program, which helped a lot of people having houses. But he's a piece of shit. Also, in his interviews, he was talking like very in very broad terms, whereas there is this other candidate, which I like better, but so like okay, what the only policy that that basically called my attention, that was a highlight for me from him, was he wants to implement buses with with the ramps so that people in wheelchairs can go up, and these buses will go across the district. So because the district is so big, I am like, I might need one of those. But other than that, it's pretty um run of the meal of the run stuff. But yeah. But they all, from what I've gathered, they all want to focus on public transport reform. But that's more of a Lima in general thing, problem, issue. And yeah, first busing. No, um, like it is just an idea. Then there's another girl, Queen. Oh, okay. I think Gina Rodriguez. No, no. Gina Galvez. So this girl, just girl boss, Queen, um, is basically running on the same platforms. Oh, but I will say, okay, I will say, her web page is actually well done. Okay, and actually finished. And this is literally the reason I'm going to vote for her, because her website it's actually completed. She has all her like points, like all her policies here, whereas this motherfucker is more preoccupied for tweeting shit that literally no one cares about. And by no one, I mean I don't care about. But he hasn't even finished his fucking website. Literally, propuesta uno, Lorem Fitsum por la gloria de mi madre. Like, this is literally, like, it literally says, like, Lorem Ipsum. If you don't know what Lorem Ipsum is, so when you go to Illustrator, you will fucking die. Where is this? Display capture. When you come to Illustrator and you put create new, right? Can you fucking not? I will fucking die. It's the default text that appears. This is the fucking. This is what it says here. Hello? And worst of all, when I come here and I come to propuestas, so like his policies, it says plan de gobierno, governmental plan. I download this. Where is my literally me right now? Me being like, oh my god, he has a PDF. Oh my god, I'm going to read it. Actually, me. But yeah. Okay, so that is literally the reason I'm not voting for him. Okay, just saying. Who needs a website or even a platform? All you really need is a very catchy slogan. Oh my god, don't even get me started on that. Like the worst part is that I know he's going to win. One, because an already established politician. Two, he's a millionaire. So literally, his face is plastered everywhere. Three, because he's an already established millionaire politician, he's like, for every one interview that I can find for each candidate, there are three of him. So like, and he's been like promoting his stuff the earliest of all because of all the money that he has. Because if you don't know, you have to pay monthly when you are putting like banners and stuff on the places, or you have to sign a contract with the local government and stuff. So like because he has money and connections, he's able to afford for the longest time all of this shit, right? So yeah. Um but yeah, the thing that I liked the most about her is that when she was talking in her interviews, she was actually like mentioning streets and specific places that need the most reform in the district. And that is what I thought it was a pretty stark difference between her and the other guy, because the other guy was just talking like, yeah, the district needs traffic reform, especially the southern part, aka the poors. But no, she was like, um the southern part of the district, like Sagittario, San Roque, etc. Like she would mention it, like would mention the streets that need the most like help with traffic, um, like the intersections. Then when she was talking about her health plan, she specifically mentioned where she wants to build or improve the health centers, and like her just mentioning like the specifics let me know that she knows what she's talking about, and she knows Surco, unlike the other guy who was just like the poor part, the poor side. And I'm like, okay, fuck you. Like, you know, but yeah. The more you're likely to win. Literally win. And yeah, like I wish she can win. Well, to be fair, I wish the guy from Peru Libre could win, but I have no idea about his policies. I literally cannot find a single interview that he has made. I am literally dying because I'm like, girl, you're in a communist party. I want to know your fucking policies. And there are literally no fucking interviews. I want to die. But yeah, I think it was here. Yes, there is. Uh, oh my god, Queen. Where was the? I mean, there are like three, if I'm not mistaken. But currently there are only like two active, but I'm not sure. So like this guy, Edwin Victor Portugal, I have literally looked him up like four times already. I can literally cannot find anything of any of his policies. Either way, he literally has like less than 1%, so he's not going to win. But yeah, but this is what we're dealing with. The reason I have focused on these two people is because they are the top two, and like he's going to win by a landslide because she has only 13%. Also, this is the third time she's running, so people know her, and yeah. But to be fair, she has been losing, not because she has a bad platform. I think her platform is pretty solid, but I think the only reason she has been losing is because one, she's a woman, and two, the people she has been losing with have been men and rich, established politician men. So yeah, so yeah, but yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about, and about the general election, not general election, the local election of all Lima. I will be voting for Peru Libre because the even though again these motherfuckers, oh my god, I literally want to Karima, Karima. These motherfuckers still think that more cops lowers crime when it's like clearly not the case. Clearly not the case. At least cops here are not killing people on a daily basis, which I am grateful for. Knowing the knowing the situation in the U.S. But still, like, if you want less crime, then you need to focus on poverty, which has been proven to be the thing that causes crime the most. But yeah. But yeah. So yeah, I will be voting for the communist guys for the general election, and I don't know if it's correct to call it general election, but yeah. So that's what's going on in Peru. Another thing I wanted to talk about Peru was that over the weekend I was looking through the website of the communist of Peru Libre, and honestly I was disappointed, but also not surprised at all. But also I thought it was interesting. So look at this fabulous website. Why do all? Okay, to be fair, it is one of the better ones out of the all the communist parties that we've gone through. Okay, like look, we love Laos, we love Laos, but girl, where's your website? Wait for it, girl. Not the transition. Oh my god. But yeah. Though they have been more consistent with updating the website, which I appreciate, but yeah. So what I want to talk about is that the leader, the chairman of the party, it is so weird. I feel like I want to interview him because surprise, surprise, he has horrible takes on social and cultural issues. Mm, okay, I will translate this so you can see. Okay, so for you all to know, caviar refers to basically Sogdams, or rather rich leftists, and by rich I mean basically white people who claim to be leftists, but they are actually Sogdams, and by Sogdams I mean liberals. So yeah. So his war against caviar is not only coincidence of this radical Marxism of he. What? Oh, his war against caviares is not the only coincidence this radical Marxist has with the right. Terron emphasizes that he opposes policies with gender perspective, same-sex marriage, and abortion, even in cases of rape, and that he only approves of it for therapeutic reasons. I don't even know what that means. We defend the family and the rights of the conceived, he says. I read this and I'm like, have you not read Engels? Have you not read The Origin of the Family, Private Property, and the State? Because I haven't, because I don't need to, but I'm pretty sure that by just reading this, you can easily understand how your idea of the need of a family and how like these retro ret- ah, backward ideas are just furthering capitalism. So yeah. Furthermore, he says, and in that conservative line, he adds, gender policies are part of a globalist agenda imposed by the U.S. with NGOs that defend caviar and that are defended by the caviares. And I'm like, you are literally falling for the trap of liberals co-opting leftist language, leftist motives, leftist issues. Because I can easily point you out to the Soviet Union and Mao's China and how they had gender centric issues by allowing abortion as soon as Mao came to power, allowing abortion as soon as Lenin came to power. Like, hello? Do you want me to quote Stalin giving rights to women in the fucking Constitution of '36? I literally said it on Twitter. This is Stalin, not even Lenin, Stalin. Women in the USSR are accorded equal rights with men in all spheres of economic, state, cultural, social, and political life. Hello, tell me how this is not gender centered. Gender centered. So yeah. What else did he say? Gender policies cannot be the priority of a left. I can agree to this point to the extent of like gender shouldn't be like the main priority. It should always be class, ideally, right? Because that will make it easier to grant rights to everyone in general. But that doesn't mean that gender should still be important, should still be an issue to be talked about, and should still be discussed and further analyzed within our material conditions. The priority of the left is to resolve the socio-economic issues, which again I agree with, but we shouldn't like just because we are focusing on the socio-economic aspects, that doesn't mean that you have to be sexist, transphobic, homophobic, or any other kind of bigotry. As long as illiteracy, tuberculosis, and infant mortality are not resolved in Peru, the forces of the state cannot deal with rights that are not priorities. Well, interesting how infant mortality doesn't exist in a vacuum. And it's pretty well documented that it doesn't even have to be documented. It's just literal logic, simple logic, biology, that if you want infant mortality to not be increasing, maybe you should be focusing on women's health or people who can have babies' health, which the majority happens to be women. So gender analysis is necessary, you know. So yeah. That's what I didn't like about him. What I found interesting about this article was that he was shitting on Castillo, which I thought, which I already knew. I didn't find that like particularly interesting, but I thought it was interesting how he was very clear that. I mean, he was just saying everything that, yeah, he might as well just say it's a Jew. Like, okay, people don't understand. Every time people say globalism or globalist agenda, it's a Nazi dog whistle. I don't know why people don't understand this. It is a fucking Nazi dog whistle. They might not specifically be talking about the Jewish people, but girl, the origin of this talking point was the fucking Nazis. It wasn't even a talking point that they stole from the US. Fucking Hitler was talking about this. The anarchists. But yeah. And the other thing, he was talking about how Castillo should take the program of the party, because like I've talked about this, Castillo is not a principled person, he's not a principled leftist. he literally just wanted to better his own district, his own like state, and this party basically grabbed him to make him like a symbol, but he himself was not prepared, and they clearly didn't prepare him. So yeah, like he's showing like how disappointed he is in Castillo, and I'm like, girl, you literally put him in the position that he's in, unprepared. What the fuck did you expect? Like, you know. Also, hi Dorian, welcome. I shouldn't be screaming or that loud, but yeah. And the last thing was, oh, he was talking about like all the other leftist leaders that have been popping up in Latin America, and this led me to doing more research about what's going on in Chile and what's going on in Colombia. Well, Colombia I've been keeping up, but yeah. Actually, in fact, literally. uh, Jello from 1 year ago. I think social democracy is pretty good. Oh my god. I mean, yeah, it's okay. Like, the the point, like, leftism is a journey, and I accept people as long as they are open to learning. So yeah. Understood is now my life mission to destroy Western Imperial Core. Yes. Yes. Half joking, but also not joking at all. Okay, another thing that he said was speaking at an international level of the left, that he disqualifies as caviar or a thugdom. Theron points out Alberto Fernandez, which is the Argentinian guy, which, look, are they thugdemish, libish? Yes. Okay. However, for Argentinian standards, and for how blatantly right wing and conservative all the media, well, not all the media, but most of the media in Argentina is, I will fucking take them. Okay? I will fucking take them. Like, for the material conditions of Argentina, I will take the Fernandezes, the Kirchners, like any day. Okay? I do think that the Kirchners are a little more left than Fernandez, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. I think that the Kirchners are a little lefter than Fernandez, but still, like, in general, how do I explain this? If in Peru it was basically an accident that a left president came to power with a communist party, Argentina having leftist president, it literally goes against like the foundation of Argentina, which is weird because like the social movements in Argentina are huge, but all of that is literally countered by media alone, right? And to add to that, like the right wing forces in Argentina, politically speaking, are so powerful anyway that even with so many of the left leaning presidents that Argentina has had, like progress is so fucking difficult. But yeah. Also, what I will say about the Kirchners, which were the previous presidents, and I think she is a current vice president, um, is that they are pre-internationalist, or at least they used to be, or like they were very uh, friendly towards Venezuela and Bolivia, which for me is like that is way better than anyone else in the entire continent. So I am giving it to you, you know. But yeah, okay. Someone just asked me last night how far left Boric is. I said they should ask you, Sebs. Now I can tell them to watch this bot. Yeah, I will talk about Boric now. Then he talked about, he also called caviar, the Chilean president, Gabriel Boric, the governments of Broad Front of Uruguay, and the Puebla group are caviar. Okay, the Puebla group, which is, I think, he's talking about, I can only assume it's Mexico, because there's a city called Puebla in Mexico, even though I'm pretty sure there's also another city called Puebla somewhere in South America, but I'm not sure. But the current president of Mexico it's pretty lip. Uh, I always want to compare people to Bernie so that people have a better grasp on things, but it is also like not very helpful because the context of the policies from Bernie are the context of the of Bernie's policies are completely different from uh from the contexts in Latin America. But yeah, yeah, he's pretty lib. He's socially conservative, just as most people in Latin America, except in Argentina. Uh, and I think the biggest problem with the current Mexican, with AMLO, is that he oh, you wouldn't call him a lib? Interesting. No, I think he pandered to the left. He pandered to the left a lot, and I can appreciate him not going to that one democracy assembly that the U.S. had because Cuba and Venezuela weren't invited, and he was like, fuck you, we're not going, I'm not going." So I can appreciate that, but yeah, he's pretty socially conservative, though he presented himself pretty progressive economically wise, but I don't think he has um, done much so far. Um, but to be fair to him, economically, Mexico is like too influenced by the US. But yeah, he stands on Venezuela and Cuba is based on. Yeah, see, that is why I'm like, I don't know your ideology. Like, I'm always so weird. But yeah, okay. Let's talk about Boric. Okay, so Boric came. Like Boric is so fucking interesting. I have a bias for him because uh, he loves Taylor Swift. He's a Swiftie and I'm a Swiftie, so fuck me, daddy, yes. But he is pretty lib. He's not okay. He is great in general with social issues. So like the fact that he has that down, great. I love you. Yes. You go girl. He established himself. He tweets standing K-pop too. I'm not sure. I don't remember Harley. Also, hi, welcome. But if he's a K-pop stan, I wouldn't like. It wouldn't surprise me from him. Whatever. So he's pretty good with social issues. He like one of his highlight policies was focused on climate change and global warming and all that stuff, like very green shit, you know. And I think the main reason he won was because of one, Piñera, which is the previous president, was literally a fascist. Piñera was literally a fascist. There was like the huge fucking protests that were going on across Chile in 2019. Like, bruh. And so he came to power with his part with between a coalition of his party and the Communist Party of Chile. So like he was literally just the best option for the left in Chile. Like I don't know how to explain to you. Like the crisis in Chile was so huge that if an actual communist would have run, they could have won. But I'm pretty sure if an actual communist would have run, he would have been killed. So yeah, I mean, like, take care, full course yellow. Thank you for coming. So he was the best, realistically speaking, left wing candidate for Chile. So yeah, keep in mind that Chile already has a history of murdering the left wing candidates when they are too socialistic. So yeah, hashtag never forget Allende. Um, okay, but he doesn't have power in Congress. He um like economically is pretty demi. I would say he's even a little less progressive than Lula, economically speaking, which is why Cerrón is qualifying him as a caviar. But he also represented in Chile, like, the new constitution. And I want to talk about the new constitution in a bit because it's been a whole mess. And again, media. But he overall represented to Chile a change in history, like for real. And he was, he is a Bernie in the sense of like he gave hope to the people. And that is why ultimately he won, he's in power, and apart from that, he's young, so he's very likable, he's charming, and all that stuff. Plus, he's white, so and relatively attractive. So yeah. So yeah, that's why he won. Uh, but also he's a beard well groomed. I mean, yeah. Uh, and so yeah, that's why he came to power. But I also personally never expected like anything radical coming from him. But another thing about the lack of things that he has done is that he has for the most part, been relying on the fact of the on the new on the fact that the constitution was going to change, because most of the policies that he was advocating for are quite literally impossible with the current constitution. So this so the new constitution would give him the leeway, like the space to do all the changes that he wanted to make. By the way, he's only been a year. Like there is still time for him to do stuff, you know. But yeah, what is sad now is that because of what's going on in Ukraine, and because of the global economy in general, because of the Ukraine Russia stuff, uh, the economy has been worsening, and the Chilean economy was already bad, was already pretty horrible, and it's been getting worse. And so people are like, how do I explain to you? People have never actually stopped like mobilizing, but they have recently up amped the mobilizations again. So there there is like the hope the Chilean populace, or some of the Chilean populace, had in Boric is starting to diminish. And again, I'm going to talk about the constitution in a bit, but I want to finish with the Sarong quote. But yeah, like that is like the basic overview of Boric. Like, is he good for what Chile had before? Yes. Is he my favorite? Like does he have the ideal leftist agenda I would love for Chile? No. But also, realistically speaking, and with Chile's history of killing communists or socialists in power, I think he's pretty solid. You know? Like, yeah. However, I am still willing to call him a caviar. But understanding the Chilean context is key to understand how not that bad that is for Chile. So yeah. So he was proposing policies like that. In what way he was proposing how the new constitution needed to be written? No, so like he wasn't. So okay, I'm going to talk about this when we talk about the constitution, which is after I finish this quote. But like, long story short, the fascist constitution literally prevents like changes in like, how do I explain this? The fascist constitution prevents him to grant social rights to people, which is one of the key aspects that he wanted to do. Two, the constitution doesn't allow for the government to be too handsy with like um, foreign businesses in industries, because some of the foreign industries have protections in the constitution. And so, or like, not that they have in the constitution, but rather the constitution is designed in order for these protections to be able to be granted to these foreign businesses. And so one of the key like, this is very tight. So like there is an indigenous uh, I wouldn't say war, but it's not like a war. It's an indigenous dispute in the south of Chile, and that is connected also with these foreign businesses destroying the environment, as you would know that these fucking businesses do. But they are not included. Like the existence of indigenous people is literally not included in the constitution, and so he cannot have like a reason to take out all of the all of the all of the businesses out, right? Because like there is no constitutional reason for him to do shit. So yeah, like a lot of his policies are dependent on the new constitution. Yes, 80% voted for a new constitution, then the corporate media mechanisms to vote against their own interests. Not getting started, but yeah, we're going to talk about again the constitution in a bit. But yeah. Okay. The broad front in Uruguay. Okay, to be fair, one, Uruguay is a small country. Two, Uruguay in general is pretty progressive. Three, the broad front has been doing good stuff in Uruguay, in my opinion, but I think that they are basically they started doing a deng before having a socialist foundation, and so they're just like continuing with capitalism, right? Obviously for the sake of the Uruguayan economy, the but because there is no such socialist foundation for the economic system to change, I think that is a pretty um, I want to say big mistake, but I think that if they truly wanted to change in the mode of production, they could have done it, and they haven't. So that's my biggest critique of the broad front in Uruguay. Um, to be fair, Uruguay is has also a lot of influence from Argentina, and that doesn't uh, and that includes the social conservatism, sadly. So it that signals to me the fact that uh, even though in Uruguay I think the fight for the left is relatively easier than in Argentina, I do think that there are still many like hurdles and not blockades, but hurdles and uh traps, you know, for the left in Uruguay. So yeah, and I think it is weird because Uruguay and Paraguay are so different but so similar at the same time. But yeah, I think Paraguay, um, like randomly mentioned in Paraguay, I think Paraguay like has been going back to like full blown capitalism, but I'm not sure because like liberation theology was like one of their leaders was a liberation theologian, and I'm not sure how much they have kept of him, and his pretty socialistic left-leaning reforms that he did like a decade ago, but still, you know. So I cannot really comment on Paraguay, but yeah. From Lula, he says that he's an exceptional case. It was a social democratic government, but a little more leftist than the others, and that is true. But like The problem, I think the biggest problem with talking about social democracy in Latin America is that when we are talking about social democracy from the global south perspective, like, I get the frustration of maintaining capitalism, but at the same time, we don't have imperialism to do, so I don't mind like suck them or suck them policies in Latin America, because at the end of the day, those suck them policies are can still technically be viewed as socialist policies because they are better in the conditions of the workers and the working class in general. But I do understand the frustration of like them still being sucked, them still wanting to uphold capitalism, them still not wanting to change the mode of production into socialism. And so, yeah. However, I think the political landscape in Latin America in general can almost allow a transition from Sogdemism to socialism pretty easily. Uh, but I am aware that, like, I don't know, like, I think it's possible, but I don't know how it would look like, because social democracy in a global south, I think looks different from social democracy in the imperial core. So I am willing to say that it might be a way to socialism, but I would still rather like a revolutionary route or like a blatant change of on the mode of production. But yeah. Um. So yeah, that's basically the biggest critique people should have of Lula. The fact that he's not willing, or he doesn't want to yet, hopefully, to go to socialism. He wants to keep social democracy, but just like in Chile, Lula is pretty radical in comparison to the previous president, who was a fascist. Like, if Piñera was horrible, we all know that. ¿Cómo se llama? What's his name? Ah. Bolsonaro is even worse. So yeah, like, I will take Lula any day for Brazil. You know? So yeah. Then Gustavo Petro. We're going to be talking about Colombia for a second, but I'm going to talk about Colombia later. But still, he says Gustavo Petro with expectation, based on the fact that the new Colombian president comes from the guerrillas and has experience in dealing with lawfare. So Gustavo Petro has a pretty fucking radical background. He has engaged in guerrilla warfare. He used to be a radical communist, like, in battle and all that stuff. And yeah, and his vice president, uh, Francia Marquez. I always just remember the Cia, but never, and then I confuse it with Rania Khalek and whatever. But yeah, Francia Marquez. She is Afro-Colombian woman, activist, yeah, human rights, environmental activist, lawyer. She has spoken to the U.S. and literally tell them to their faces, "Hey, you are a fucking imperialist. You should fucking stop genociding us. Thank you. Get the fuck out of Colombia." And then she was never invited to Washington again. um, but yeah, So there is more hope. So at least um Cerrón, the chairman of the party, of the Communist Party here, has more hope to Petro, but I think, you know, I see Cerrón so far as just this kind of purist. He's kind of a purist in my opinion. I think he doesn't really grasp uh doesn't really grasp each of the material conditions and each of the contexts of um each country in Latin America. However, I do think most of his criticism is valid because of the goal of we want socialism, but we kind of also have to acknowledge the material conditions of each country. So to expect a communist to rise all of a sudden, I am reading Saron's position. Like all of this quote is from Saron. So yeah, like based on this, I've been talking. So like he sees Petro with expectations, but for example, I who have at least me who has done more research on Colombia and have been like, Cerrón is the chairman of the party of Peru Libre, which is the party of Castillo. Castillo is my president. But Castillo is not a principled communist. So Cerrón, the chairman of the party, is like criticizing him and he's talking about like his social conservatism, his in this article, his disappointments with Castillo, and now in this paragraph he was talking about like the international landscape around Latin America. So yeah, uh, so but yeah, like I at least who have engaged in more of the context and news around Colombia and the Colombian election, I think it was expected from Petro to be radical, to have been doing at least some of the reforms and little cultural changes that he has done so far. And so I expect him to be pretty radical. I do think that there are. I don't doubt that he will try to do shit, but it wouldn't be surprising to me if he doesn't try to do some of the more radical stuff later on after understanding that the Colombian system is going to be trying to go against him. And I think these first two, I think this, I will give him these first 2 years to do the most radical stuff. And it will be for him to see how much he can do with Colombia, and based on how much he can actually do and how much the right manages to block his progress, like we will see. But like I don't have that much I don't have except skepticism with any of the current leftist leaders. I see them very through and through as the Sogdems or the leftists that they are. And so I understand that all the changes that any of these presidents in Latin America, these left-leaning or leftist presidents want to do in Latin America, as they will still give positive changes. They will still try to do positive, progressive, even though we know it's a bad word, but like progressive changes in Latin America, regardless of their ideology. Again, ideally, they would go for more radical, straight up socialist changes and they would actually try to change the mode of production. But I understand how not possible it is, based on the material conditions of all of these countries. But yeah, because I don't see, like, mm, I don't see right now a foundation for revolution in Chile, Argentina, uh, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, or Brazil. I think Brazil and Chile are the most close to a revolution, and because of their fascist government. But I do think that if a revolution happens in Chile, it's going to happen after Boric, because I'm like, how history goes. Probably after Boric, if he doesn't manage to do as much, there will be either center or right wing, or straight up right wing candidate that is going to win the presidency, and then the Chileans are going to realize, oh shit, Boric was good, but we need more, and now the right is taking shit from us, and because they already have an understanding of mobilizing because of the protests in 2019, I think either by I think by the end of this decade, Chile could very well have done a revolution, a socialist revolution, if not just elect an actual socialist president, but it will take time. Because that is just the nature of revolution. It takes time. Like, the Chinese Communist, the Communist Party of China was created in 1921. They got to power in 1959, and it took them that long to be like constantly mobilizing, raising money, surviving the state, like organizing, spreading their word. So yeah, I mean, to be fair, China's huge, but you know, so if I think so, I see Boric right now getting to power as signaling to people, hey, you're allowed to be a communist, you know, for the more left leaning people. So yeah, like, this is I look, I am just trying to be hopeful, you know. Worst case, they continue being a liberal country, you know. But like, this is what my realistic hopes are for Chile. In Brazil, I am quite surprised that there hasn't been a revolution in Brazil, but also I am not sure about the position of the broader left and the more radical left in Brazil, because I just haven't done enough research on Brazil's material conditions. But uh, I hope for Lula to be pushed to the left more. But yeah, that's it. Okay. Uh, Theron specifies that of the incumbent presidents of the region, he feels closest to the Bolivian Luis Arce, not to mention the Cuban government. He also declares his sympathy with Nicolas Maduro. So I think it's pretty interesting because uh, Bolivia is currently the most radical government that is still functioning within a capitalist mode of production in South America at least. Um, and I don't know if like it is interesting because I think Bolivia again, Bolivia is a small country, or at least smaller than Peru. And it's not that as spread apart as Chile, for example. And so I think it is easier in that way, the fact that they have been able to have such a lot, such a radical, such a radical president. To be fair, they've had a lot of intervention from the US, which has difficulted their government. But yeah, yeah, that's it. On Venezuela and Cuba, I've talked about Cuba plenty of times here. Sorry. About Venezuela, I still don't understand Venezuela that much. To be fair, to be honest with you all. Um, but yeah, like I don't understand like the intricacies of the system and how it works. Um, I can only assume they have a socialist mode of production, but other than that, yeah, you know. Uh, but I do think, I mean, obviously, Cuba is way further in their revolutionary process. Um, but yeah, there is like just so much propaganda against Venezuela. Okay, okay, let's go back to Boric and the election. So recently, the Chilean populace started started voted to approve or reject the new constitution that had been redacted by the Constitutional Assembly. And if the constitution had been approved by the populace, it would have been the most progressive constitution in America. I'm not sure if it would have been the most progressive constitution in the world, because I think I've had that impression because some people have mentioned that, but definitely the most progressive constitution in Latin America, in all America, in America in general. However, when Chileans went to vote, around 62% rejected the new constitution, even though like over 70%, if I'm not mistaken, of people wanted a new constitution. And people might be asking, then why, if most people wanted a new constitution, did they reject the current one? Well, propaganda. As Topaz is mentioning, also hi Topaz, welcome. The TV commercials in Chile were mostly anti-Venezuelan propaganda. Do you want us to become like Venezuela? But no, oh my god. Like literally, that's the same shit that people were saying in Peru when Castillo was running. Do you want us to turn into Venezuela? We're going to get killed. And I was like, one, we're not turning into Venezuela because our economy is easily diversifiable. And second, no, 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 we are not going to turn into Venezuela because Castillo is pretty liberal. So no. But yeah, so in Chile, there was a huge, like, a huge effort from the right and right wing media to push fear, to fearmonger over the population. And the key aspects that they fearmongered about were women's rights and pluriculturalism or multiculturalism, which was the inclusion of the, what was her name? What was the name of the indigenous people from the south of Chile? Uh, Mapuche. Thank you. Like like 12%, literally a tenth, over a tenth of the Chilean population are indigenous people, and over 20% or 50% of that indigenous population is Mapuche. And so the Mapuche population has managed to avoid, like, literally, king shit, managed to avoid colonization from the Spanish. Hello? And up until, like, literally a century or so ago, were able to live peacefully. And so right now there is a conflict going on in the center south of the country, which is where the Mapuche population lives, and they are claiming for, they are fighting for sovereignty, as they should be, because it's their fucking right, it's their fucking land. But the fascist constitution of Pinochet didn't include them. They act like they don't exist, literally. Hi, lawsuit, welcome. And so this new constitution was going to include them for Boric. Well, it's not going to include them for Boric to be able to do stuff, but rather it's going to include them because they should be included. One, two, it would have included them, or it wanted to include them, uh, because they wanted to be able to form an indigenous, not coalition, but like indigenous representation in Congress and like in the political aspects of Chile in general. And so for that, you first need to acknowledge their existence in the constitution. But one of the ways they did that in the way the constitution was redacted was that they included words such as multiculturalism, pluriculturalism, and and propaganda told people that these were dog whistles to basically indoctrinate the populace, and that people would lose rights even though it literally has nothing to do with it, and that they would lose Chilean culture because of the constitution, even though culture is done by the people. And even if like a constitution which doesn't really affect like culture directly as much, like like this is the ridiculous shit that they were pulling off, right? And so that is one of the aspects why a lot of people were skeptical of the new constitution and voted to reject it. Then the second thing was abortion. Like I am little I was so like I watched a couple of interviews, with feminist organizers from Chile, and like the things that were included in the constitution for women's rights in general were like mind blowing to me, given that recently Roe v. Wade was overturned. And don't get me wrong, like I was completely unsurprised when Roe v. Wade was overturned. But like, given that the U.S. has just lost rights, and Chile was about to like get literally all the fucking rights to women, because like paridad or parity is this thing that has been developed in Latin America in order to have more political representation by women in political representation by women. So like slowly but surely, a lot of Latin American countries have been working up towards having um a half Congress, so half women, half men. I know the binary. Okay, don't get me wrong, like criticism, but progress is it's progress. Okay. Uh, but yeah, and so like this idea of women being able to participate politically is nothing new. Like it's been going on like literally for this entire century. Like parity was introduced in Central America for like um in like literally the late 90s. But yeah, and like the entirety of Latin America has been implementing this slowly but surely. But basically, the new constitution was going to include parity, include rights for women, like abortion rights for women, um, rights in the workplace for women, which I thought it was pretty mind blowing, because it was very like overt and explicit, and the there was another thing that I cannot remember. But yeah, like it was pretty progressive in women's stuff. So like it is ridiculous how like just 1 or 2 points made people just vote to reject the entire constitution. Like they could literally agree with everything else except, for example, abortion or pluriculturality. And because they just didn't agree because they are too fucking racist and sexist, they said, "Oh no, the entire constitution bye." And it is like, it's so fucking frustrating. Uh, those 2 points. Before I talk about like the Venezuelan aspect of it, I wanted to talk about another thing because there was another thing. Oh yeah, the in general, this is what I've been hearing from political analysts of Chile, and it is interesting because like I've watched interviews with like more left leaning and the lib ones, and they are pretty much the same. Just the rhetoric is different, but in general, there is this consensus that the populace, like more than just the constitution, this was kind of a second election for Boric, and basically to see how much approval he has. But and so the Chilean populace, or a big part of the Chilean populace rejecting the new constitution, is basically seen as the Chilean people telling Boric that they still don't have much trust on him in him, and that they are expecting more from him, which I think is kind of ridiculous because, as I mentioned before, he's literally not able to do shit with the current constitution. But yeah, uh, and so because like people understand, okay, like let's let's say let's say that Boric no, he doesn't. Like he has a minority in Congress. That's why. Thank you,
Stop making
Tupa.
that surprise face. It's so annoying. Yeah, you can't possibly be that surprised all the time.
Thank you, Tupa,
Tapas
for gifting the
024 has
sub. I
gifted
appreciate
1
it.
sub
Thank
to
you.
tier friends.
Boric literally doesn't have any support in Congress. Like, this is why, like, it is so dependent on the change of constitution. And so, because, like, even like let's say, even if Boric was able to give rights to women, right, which it would have to go through Congress, and Congress doesn't like Boric, it would be temporary. It would literally be temporary. Like the next right wing president will take those rights like from them. Like Biden. It wasn't Biden. It was the judges. Bitch, Biden has been president for 2 fucking years. He could have codified law like Roe v. Wade into law, and he didn't. So people telling me that he didn't do that, he didn't take the rights away from women, it's a bullshit. Okay, but yeah, like he understands that even if he were to give rights to women by his own executive power, like it wouldn't last. It would like it's pretty ironic. It would be just liberal reform that would go back inevitably, and he's aware, at least in the social aspects, that the changes that need to be done socially and culturally are systematic and therefore need to be in the constitution. But yeah, other than the fact that again he doesn't have power in Congress. Um, but yeah, like there is this like idea that a lot of people are still not super confident in Boric, and that's why they have rejected it. But the main consensus, the broad consensus from all political commentators analysis that I've been watching and reading about is that propaganda has been the main fucking issue with uh, with changing people's minds basically, or fear mongering them. Not to mention that like like this is ridiculous because like there are people who say that the constitution wasn't like there are some people from the um canvassing that were saying that they rejected the constitution because it was too broad or not specific enough, and that like the language in the constitution was elitist. Again, going back to the word pluriculturalism or multiculturalism. Uh, and that's just bullshit. Because, first of all, legal language in itself is elitist because it is legal language. It is jargon that like that exists just for the context of certain people who work with law. And because not everyone works with law, it makes sense that not everyone knows that language. Like that's first of all. Second, you will have this verbiage in any constitution. You had that verbiage, if not more complicated jargon, in your current constitution. Literally, your excuses. Oh, I didn't understand these words. Bullshit. Have you read your previous constitution? Did you understand what it all meant? Because I doubt it. Because there is a section for legal justice procedures and stuff, and that's pretty judicial jargon. Like, no one, unless you're a fucking judge or a lawyer, or your life is in politics, not everyone will be able to understand that. So, like, I thought that was mind blowing and so infuriating. And second, constitutions are supposed to be general, are supposed to be universal, are supposed not to be very specific, because the Constitution is the framework under which the laws will work. The laws are the ones who have to be specific, and they have to have their specific situations, their exceptions, and all that stuff. And and because the nature of the Constitution is supposed to be flexible and addable, renewable, etc. Along history, if there are changes that need to be done to the Constitution based on further cases that no one thought about now, the Constitution is supposed to allow for those changes when the time is necessary. So it doesn't even matter if it's not specific enough right now, because it can be more specific later on, because that is literally how constitutions work. But yeah, either way, you can change laws, whatever. But yeah, so that's the other aspect that I wanted to touch on before propaganda. But yeah, propaganda, the media, the mostly right wing leaning media, has been fear mongering about women's rights and Venezuela. And to be fair, like, the Venezuelan fear mongering has been how do I explain it? Since 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 the US it's all so fucked up. Since the US decided to do the blockade to Venezuela and not like, this is so funny. It's like the US did a blockade, put sanctions on Venezuelan oil. Oh, how the turns have tabled. Uh, and so because because now sorry, I have to go into this. Like, it is pretty funny because, like, the blockade on Venezuelan oil made them reliant on Russian oil that they are now sanctioning. And I'm like, bitch, this is literally karma. Fuck you. But yeah, okay. So they sanctioned Venezuelan oil, and so Venezuela, because they hadn't yet diversified their economy. They were still pretty reliant on oil. So because the US sanctioned them, their economy fell to the floor. Which, mind you, they had a pretty average economy before the blockade. Literally before the sanctions on Venezuela, No one gave a fuck that the system was socialist. Just saying. No one gave a fuck. Some people said, oh, they have a dictatorship, but the economy was like, ah, was like, the economy, you know? But since the US sanctioned them and the economy fell down, everyone in the region was like, oh, it's socialism. It's Maduro. It's the evil dictator. He wants to kill their populace. And I'm like, do you see how you are just now saying that? And years ago you weren't saying that? What do you think happened? Because years ago they still had the same leader. So don't you think that if he wanted to do that purposefully, he would have done that from the beginning? You know? And don't you think it is pretty interesting that just when the US sanctioned them, their economy fell to the floor? Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting that when the most powerful country economically in the world sanctioned them, their economy fell? Isn't that interesting? It's almost like that dictator didn't do it. It's almost like the US did it to them. It's almost like they knew that that was going to happen, and that's why they wanted to diversify their economy. But they needed the oil money first to diversify their economy. But the US decided to arbitrarily sanction them before they could do anything about it. Isn't that interesting? No, but it's because it's a dictatorship and socialism. No iPhone. Venezuela. Okay, but yeah. So that's what happened in Venezuela. And so since the since the sanctions and the crisis and the economy falling, a lot of Venezuelans have been moving to other countries. If they're supposed to be poor, then how do they move to other countries? I have no idea. Because allegedly they needed to move because they were poor. But if they are poor, I don't understand how they moved to another country. But it doesn't matter. Okay, like you know how Cubans moved to the US because they had boats. They owned those boats. Interesting. I thought they were poor. Then why did they own boats? It's almost like the people moving from Cuba weren't poor. Huh. And isn't it interesting that a lot of people moving out of Venezuela are pretty light skinned, white looking, and the people in the streets of Caracas are mostly indigenous, dark skinned, you know, brown. Interesting. It's almost like the upper classes are the ones moving out of Venezuela because they can. because they want to. It's almost like in Venezuela there's a system that is subjugating the owning classes instead of the working classes. You know? Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, say that. Just saying. In Peru that worked for 14 days. Interesting. That is, and that is wild to me, because it's like I don't understand why you would walk to another country when I feel like that's worse than whatever you think is going on in Venezuela. Plus, most of the people moving to other countries are still leaving their families in Venezuela. And I'm like, okay, you are not moving because you need to, you're moving because you want to. Because if you needed to, your family would be moving with you. So yeah. No, but when people walk to the US, they walk the entire, either they're normally with their entire family, or first they go alone and then their family moves. But what I'm seeing, at least in Peru, is that it's like it's only people, like singular people, and almost never families. And the only cases of families that I've seen move is because they either are with a baby or they are super fucking rich. You know? But yeah, whatever. But yeah. So since the crisis in Venezuela, the and people moving to other countries, uh no, but it's been years. Whatever. Okay, I'm not going to get into this. Um it's like there's a lot of propaganda. Okay. So in Venezuela, so a lot of Venezuelan people have been moving to other countries, and because of that influx of Venezuelan immigrants, people are racist and xenophobic. So they see, oh, another people taking over my country. Oh, get out! And so because they are racist, homophobic, and racist and xenophobic, and media is telling them Bubusuela bad, there is that sentiment already that the Chilean media has taken advantage of, and they have been saying that the new constitution, which like that the new constitution is going to turn Chile into Venezuela, even though they've been with Boric already a year and Bubuzuela hasn't happened, even though the constitutional process has been going on for over 2 years and Bubuzuela hasn't happened. And even though, like, literally nothing in the constitution was directly related to Venezuela or similar to Venezuela's constitution, and anything that they had like similar to the Venezuelan constitution is because it is similar to any other constitution, be it the structure or basic rights, which are not exclusive to Venezuela and most countries should have anyway. And I stress the should, but yeah. So yeah, like, and as Topaz was saying, like there was a lot of like commercial saying that Venezuela was going to be in the news. In the news, people would comment about how they were scared. Like the famous newscasters would comment about how they were scared that it would turn into Venezuela, uh, that the economy would fall, even though your economy is already shed. Hello. Um, but yeah, and it is interesting because people think that the economy is the GDP, and Chile has like a good economy on paper, but if you had a good economy, why was there so much social unrest? Why were people literally starving in 2019? Like that's the thing about like Venezuela, for example, like if it wasn't because of propaganda, like why aren't Chileans moving? Why aren't more Colombians moving? Well, before the new president. You know what I mean? Like, arguably things were worse for a lot of populations in Colombia and were arguably worse in a lot of parts of in Chile, yet there is no influx of immigration coming from those two countries. So yeah. Interesting enough, but yeah. So yeah, that's the constitution. Okay. That was the constitution of Chile. And yeah. Okay, I think I am kind of unmotivated now, but Chile's constitution. Oh, the leftist president. Why are you drinking water? It is not that interesting. Uh, okay, let's go over this video from Breakthrough News because it's just a part of the show that they clipped talking about Colombia and everything that the new president has done so far. And I will like add onto all this stuff because he has done more. But yeah.
And we are very happy to be joined, as we always are very happy to be joined by Zoe Alexandra, who's a journalist and co-editor at People's Dispatch. Zoe, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Always fun.
Well, great. I'm glad because it's always very informative for us to have you on.
Zoe.
So we are always excited to have you.
Big Zoe fans here at the Freedom Side.
The big People's Dispatch fans overall.
Yeah.
So Colombia. So obviously, you know, we've had you on several times before in the lead up to the election, just after the election. We just have seen the ascension of President Gustavo Petro, Vice President Francia Marquez. They're in there. They're now in office. I know a number of things have happened from the cabinet to negotiations. So, I mean, just give us a sense of where things stand in Colombia now that we have the at least very early days of the new administration.
Well, it's honestly remarkable. And leading up to the elections, there was a lot of hope, a lot of excitement about what this government could look like. And honestly, it continues to be exciting. It continues to be transformative. For example, the Minister of Culture, Patricia Orisa, she is a longtime peace activist. She survived the genocide of the Unión Patriótica. She's founded an activist theater in Bogota. She, for example, decreed that the viche drink of the traditional Afro-Colombian communities in the Pacific Southwest is now going to be protected, that it can't be seized by the police. I mean, this is a small measure, but it really speaks to the fact that this government is deeply invested in protecting traditional communities, supporting the minorities that have been so long oppressed by the government, by successive conservative governments in the country that ignored them, that acted like they were unimportant, that didn't invest in their education and their culture. And that's really just changing on so many levels. This is a small example of what's happening in the Ministry of Culture, but this is happening in so many sectors. The footage you're seeing now is from the swearing in that happened the day before the official swearing in, where Petro and Francia took their time to go with the social movements who organized the social movement swearing in ceremony, where they committed to supporting social struggle. They committed to putting an end to the genocide of human rights defenders, of social leaders in the country. This is more than a symbolic gesture. This is a really, truly hard commitment to their struggles. And we've seen this. Of course, the paramilitary violence is not going to disappear after 1 week. This is a problem that has been plaguing Colombia for decades. It had to do with a lot of state support, but it will continue even if the state doesn't support them. It's connected to really important economic sectors in the country, drug trafficking groups. And so this is going to take a lot to dismantle. But the government has repeatedly stated that they're committed to stopping this violence against social movements. They're committed to peace. And that, I think, will probably bring us to the next question, which is the tremendous steps that they've taken to actually reach peace in Colombia with only, 11 days in office.
It is interesting because, like, since the 50s, since the 50s or the 60s, Colombia has been a right-wing hell. And I'm not talking like right-wing US style. I'm talking about like overt, like US tends to have like breaks from the right wing with the Democrats, right? In Colombia, it's basically like everyone was a Republican. Which, again, not much difference, but like just the fact that they were just overly all like red right wing is like and that wasn't just like coincidence. Like there was a coalition formed from all the right-wing parties against the left in the 50s or 60s, and they literally made it into law that it was basically illegal for you to be a leftist or for there to even be a left-leaning party. And since then, the state, the government, has been murdering, kidnapping, like terrorizing, like entire populations, like left-wing leaders. And by left-wing, I don't even mean like they will kill the communists. They would literally kidnap like left-leaning liberal politicians just because they were a little left. That was reason enough for them to kidnap them and put them in cages for years. Hello? in the middle of the fucking jungle. Like, they would do that with politicians, reporters, like journalists, activists, like, and that has been going on for literally half a century. So, like, people don't understand how truly fucking revolutionary in all the meaning, with all the meaning of the word, like, Petro has been for Colombia, and of course Francia, right? But like, and so if Petro has been able to do all of these changes within the first 3 weeks, within the first 2 weeks, it is not just because it shows how committed he is to the ideals that he has been running with, the ideals that he has been running with, but because it really shows how desperately Colombia needed some resemblance of some change. And these little changes that he had done in the first 2 weeks were just signals to the populace that, hey, I am going to try to do shit. I am doing little shit right now because that's the most immediate thing that I can do, right? But these are like the crumbs that they're not even crumbs, they're literally breads, to be honest. But like, these are like these little things that the Colombian populace needed for their own fucking peace of mind, of being like tortured. Not to even mention that just in the year prior to the election, like literally last year in 2021, in 2020, 2021, there was so much like social unrest in Colombia. Like, there were a lot of protests going on, a lot of mobilizing, a lot of police violence that I don't know why no one was talking about. I covered it like just once at the height of it, but this is shit that has been going on for a long time, especially in the most like indigenous or black communities in Colombia, because like Colombia is very, very segregated, like just nationally speaking. And so, like, these resistance movements have been existing and trying to be destroyed for years, decades. Like, and this is why I'm like, okay, Venezuela could be bad. Colombia has been horrible for decades, and people are not moving. So, but yeah.
It's also amazing to see what this means for the region and really the continent. I mean, you have the Colombian foreign minister having recently traveled to Cuba to restart these peace negotiations with the ELN, which is quite significant. You also have Colombia normalizing relations with Venezuela, whereas before.
Oh, and another thing, Colombia used to literally be the military base for US troops to go into Venezuela. Colombia was the hub for US imperialism against Venezuela. That's where Guaido would like literally leave and stay there for his own safety because no one in Venezuela liked him, and to this day no one likes him. uh in Colombia was where he would like go back in order to be safe and in order to give like those make those videos and speeches. And there are some propaganda videos of him in Colombia saying that he was in Venezuela, and like Venezuelan people will be like, that's literally not Venezuela. I like but yeah, against, yes, yes, the big caravan, yes, from Colombia. Because everything was like that was the like that's where the US had their military base. So yeah.
Or Colombia was basically the American base of operations to destabilize Venezuela. So, what is the significance of all this? What does it mean for the region? What does it mean for the Latin American left?
It's extremely significant. And it's interesting because, again, there was a lot of speculation. Is this going to be just a kind of light progressive government that isn't going to really work with the region and really try to transform the region? But again, after 11 days, I think we can say with a lot of certainty that no, this is going to be a very progressive government that is going to fundamentally transform the politics that have been happening for the past couple of decades. The relations between Colombia and Venezuela have been incredibly strained, despite being intrinsically linked as countries, as peoples, with a common history of independence, a common history of struggle for liberation. But during the following kind of these attacks that were led by Washington in the latest period that began with a lot of intensity in 2015, relations have been really strained. The border area has been a site of a lot of conflict between Venezuelan armed forces and paramilitary groups. Colombian armed forces also getting involved. Of course, once the Guaido factor enters, there's been a lot, even more developments happening with, government of Duque providing shelter for Guaido as he went to, stage this humanitarian aid thing on the border. There's been so many examples of paramilitaries that have trained within Colombia to go and try to assassinate Nicolas Maduro. These are really
Oh yeah, I forgot they trained there. Oh my god.
horrible precedents. But again, in the first week of Gustavo Petro's government, he mandated a new ambassador to be appointed to serve in Venezuela, the resuming of talks. This had already happened before his swearing-in ceremony. Alvaro Leiva had already traveled to the border to have a meeting with members of the Venezuelan government. This is huge because these people are intrinsically linked. There's over 4 million Colombians in Venezuela. There are now tens of thousands of Venezuelans in Colombia, so it's not an option for them not to be engaged. And the fact that the government of Ivan Duque was so hostile towards Venezuela only hurt the people. And so this is a tremendous step forward. It will be extremely helpful in loosening kind of the attacks against Venezuela because, as I mentioned, Colombia has been a primary partner in not only supporting politically these attacks, but also logistically and materially. And so this is extremely important. And the image you're seeing now of the sword of Simón Bolívar being part of this ceremony, Ivan Duque actually tried to prevent this sword of Simón Bolívar from being used in this ceremony. And Gustavo Petro, as his first order as president, he said, bring the sword of Simón Bolívar. This has to be present. And they did that. So it's just emotional. It's very moving, and it really shows the course they're charting.
No, I think that's an important issue, and obviously you've mentioned the issue of peace, and this is, perhaps in many ways the overarching issue of the campaign in and of itself. Now that peace talks have restarted with the ELN, and there's also, of course, the issue of, continuing the existing peace process that was already established with the FARC. I mean, what are some of the contours of what that negotiation may look like with the ELN in terms of actually reaching a deal? And how does that also speak to some of the things that have yet to be implemented, but that Petro, I know, has promised to implement vis-a-vis the past peace deal?
Definitely. So as you said, the implementing a full and lasting peace in Colombia was a primary item on the agenda of the campaign of Francia and Peru.
Before she continues, sorry, like I think it's interesting how peace has been so bastardized in the West because typically peace is literally a dog whistle for imperialism. But I just want to like really stress the fact that when we're talking about peace in Colombia, we're talking about actual peace because of all the struggle and actual fucking war that has been going on. Like, again, like this, and it is interesting because Petro has just announced like conversations that he wants to have with the entire populace and with different sectors of the populace. But like, again, it is wild how much Colombia needed that, and it's and it is interesting because Petro is not, it's not the fact that Petro is like just aware of it, like he knows the desperate need for peace that Colombia has because he has engaged in that liberation struggle. So he knew that as soon as he got into power, he needed to do shit to signal to the population, I am doing this for real because I know we need this. And on top of that, he has Francia, who has been engaging, who has engaged in the liberation up until running, right? Up until before running. Like she obviously had to stop to do the fucking run and stuff. But like she was literally like in the front lines, to put it like that, because it's not like an actual ongoing war. It's like just like the camps, and sometimes there's engagement and sometimes there's not, but it's like activism work and all that stuff. So like, but yeah, like I know Petro for a fact has been in the front lines when there was like actual like guerrilla warfare going on. But like yeah, like these two people are fully fucking aware. They know, they have lived firsthand the lack of peace. So it makes complete sense that they know the desperate need for peace, and when they talk about peace, they are talking about it in the most real sense of the word. So yeah, they have to move quick to secure their own populace and international partnership to protect against sabotage. Honestly, yes, that is another good point, because like they know they are working within the system. At any moment, anything can be dropped on them, figuratively or literally, knowing the US. But like for real. And so they know they don't have time. They have to work now, 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 now. And for example, it's interesting because like just a few days ago, Petro announced the rise of oil prices, and I think it's funny because like one, he kind of had to do it, but didn't have to, and two, he's kind of doing that purposefully in order for people not to drive, because it is like Colombia is a small country. They have pretty. I don't want to say that they have pretty good public transport, but they have public transport that people use, and so to foment that, he's raising gas prices in order for people not to drive. I don't know how he's going to work that with public transport and not raise the transport the fare, right? But yeah, I don't know. It is interesting. But yeah. Yes. Oh, thank you.
Petro, both victims of this conflict in some senses. Francia has not only been displaced from her territory fighting against a mining company in her region, but also received threats from paramilitary groups. Petro, of course, was a member of the M19. Many of the people that he was part of the movement with were assassinated. Of course, Pizarro, who his daughter swore put the presidential sash on Petro. He was assassinated. He was a presidential candidate from the M19 movement. So peace has always been first and foremost on the agenda. As you said, again, the second day of their government, Gustavo Petro ordered talks to be restarted with the ELN, the National Liberation Army of Colombia. During Duque's presidency, essentially a week into his presidency in August 2018, he suspended a round of talks that was set to happen. He dismantled the delegation of the government to go to Cuba to continue the talks. And these talks had been in development for years. They already had an agenda. They had started in Quito, Ecuador. But of course, the government of Lenin Moreno had essentially said, you have to leave. Cuba, once again, a big promoter of peace.
It is so funny because like some people in the Western left thought that Lenin Moreno would be a left-wing candidate in Colombia because his name is Lenin. But he was a lib. He was a lib. But yeah. Hi Brett, welcome.
In the region, and especially for Colombia, received these talks. And then following the suspension of the peace talks, Duque emitted a red alert through Interpol on the members of the peace delegation, calling for their arrest, calling for their extradition, and Cuba, being a guarantor of peace and having to, comply with international law and these agreements that were made, they did not extradite the members of the peace delegation. This had implications on Cuba. It was put on the sponsors of terrorism list for this reason, for abiding by international law, for abiding by these agreements made in the peace talks. And so the fact that now peace talks are going to resume, as I said, Alvaro Leyva traveled to Cuba last week. He met with not only members.
I just want to highlight the fact that the US put a country in the naughty list for following international law. A country followed international law, and the US said, you are bad. I'm not even going to mention the relationship between the US and international law that they don't follow, that they actively go against every day and no one does anything about it. But like, the caucasity to say, oh, you are following international law? Bad. I'm dead.
Of the Cuban government, but also of the peace delegation of the ELN. They're going to restart the talks. One of the key issues in these talks is having the participation of the society in the talks, raising these key demands that have brought Colombians onto the streets for the past several years. And the agenda is already there. They've been saying that they're willing to engage in these talks. And so it's really a matter of time. It seems like the government is building its delegation, and these should be taking place shortly. And it's interesting to note that Alvaro Leyva, in his visit to Cuba, said that Cuba should no longer be on this list of sponsors of terrorism. They've lifted the Interpol alert. They've started talks again, so there's really no justification. Similarly, he said that Colombia does not recognize Guaido. So these two main platforms of the U.S. government that they've been trying to kind of impose across Latin America have, within a week, been completely debunked. And, Washington is seeing that it's
thank you for a follow.
It's going to have a more tough situation with this government of Gustavo Petro. They're not going to lay by their side and say, we're going to, throw everyone else to the side and do what Washington wants.
Jellyfish, welcome.
Yeah, it really is incredible, right? That peace talks, as far as the U.S. is concerned, are considered an act of terrorism.
Yeah.
That's essentially what you just described. But it is a good point, though, in the sense about the U.S. role here, because, like you've been talking about, the U.S. and Colombia have always been very close allies. Colombia has been the launching pad for so many destabilization campaigns across Latin America against leftist governments, particularly Venezuela. The U.S. has many military bases in Colombia.
Sorry, that
There
was a
are
real soapbox.
Oh my God.
Why did I say sorry?
Thank you, Jellyfish.
Jellyfish just subscribed.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the sub. But yeah, it is interesting because I know that Colombia has also been a way to destabilize Ecuador, but I feel like Ecuador is such a small country, people don't pay attention to it. But I mean, also like it happened like once or twice, and it wasn't like massive scale, but like yeah, the U.S. manages to use Colombia very strategically. I mean, very strategically, like just taking advantage of their neighbors, but like it manages to use it like effectively sometimes. Yeah. Another Colombia's was president was called Israel of Latin America. Oh my god, I'm dead. Of course.
are these paramilitary groups you mentioned that are tied to Colombian oligarchs who are tied to the U.S. So this is incredible what's happening, but of course we have to be, we can't forget that the U.S. is constantly planning, is constantly interfering. What's the potential here for what the U.S. could do? I mean, the U.S. and the Colombian military, the security apparatus are still very close. That hasn't changed. That doesn't change overnight. So I guess what is the kind of backlash from the U.S. that is to be expected here? And I assume that in Colombia, the people who are currently in power are expecting something to take place. Not maybe they don't know exactly what, but what are the opportunities the U.S. has to take advantage of?
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, during the inauguration, of course, there's a lot of international delegations. Of course, the U.S. government sent a delegation, and they had meetings with the government of Gustavo Petro. They've had meetings. Samantha Power met with Francia Marquez. It's important to point out that they are not closed off to relations with the U.S., and they know that it would only count against them to have a hostile attitude from the get-go. I think
again, this is a very, very Deng-like strategy. Like keep this in mind, right? Like even if it's obviously not directly inspired by Dong, like we still live in a world where it's pretty clear that if you don't have a good relationship with the US, you are going to be bombed. or at the very least sanctioned, which can do as much harm as actual bombs. So yeah.
Even the socialist governments in Latin America have always been open to dialogue. And with this government of Gustavo Petro, I think they're very clear on the fact that first of all, Gustavo Petro is not anti-capitalist. He's not planning on completely, revamping the entire economic model that Colombia operates on. He's going to make important changes in the society, improve the lives of millions of people. And yes, there are going to be definite changes with its relationship.
I don't know. I don't remember if I watched it here on stream, but in the Bad Face episode with talking about the Colombian elections with what was his name? The one from Multipolarista. Ben Norton. In the Bathface episode with Ben Norton, yes. Brianna asked him about like the capitalist views of Petro, because there was a moment in one of the speeches where he was talking about like how he would maintain capitalism, and Francia does like a face like, oh my god, no, like, do I have to not trust you anymore face? And then he like looks back at her and he's like, don't worry, like, we got it, like, like, I understand, but don't worry. And like, I think that is like really shows the that he, at least he is very aware of the international position that Colombia is in. I mean, every country is in an international position, but like how like aware he is of how the economy is working internationally, and how countries like the US, specifically the US, are so willing to do shit to your country as soon as you start to overtly turn away from capitalism, right? And especially like, I'm pretty sure he's very aware of the fact that, like, I mean, it is impossible not to be aware that the US has very direct links with Colombia, right? And so like Colombia is in the very like it's on a very direct line of sight of the US. So he knows that he has to be careful, right? Like, even if it's like a mini dog whistle or a mini pandering of like, yeah, I'm going to keep capitalism, US. Don't bomb us, don't kill me, please. Please. Like, still. But yeah, like, it shows the awareness of the material conditions. But yeah, but just away from capitalism, but away from neocolonialism. Like, Russia isn't turning away from capitalism; they're still getting fucked with, because they don't want to bow to the international neocolonial order. I mean, yeah, I mean, to be fair, um, like, the history of Russia is like historical, but it, like, not to be redundant, but the history with Russia is historical, and so even though they they turned capitalist, the US knew that because of all the advancements and progress that the USSR managed to do, they would still be a competitor internationally, economically. And so it's not like the US all of a sudden stopped looking at Russia when Yeltsin came to power, and when Putin came to power, they were like, this Putin doesn't seem that much fond of the US. We should take a look at him. Like, no, like, the US, since the USSR has seen Russia as this enemy, because of the own USSR nature of not capitalist, but also like because of the increase in their economy, the advancements in their economy that they've had, like, they have seen Russia as a competitor, like the same way Japan, right, before they became a satellite state of the US. Uh, and so when they become capitalist, they still kept an eye on them. And that's why they have been surrounding Russia with military bases of NATO. Like, if if like do you know what I mean? Like, it's not only the fact that Russia challenge neocolonialism, but rather Russia, because of its own like progress, has always been seen by the US or by the West, by the US mainly, as this enemy. And so them finally defying neocolonialism was like the excuse to go against Russia more overtly. But even then, like the fact that NATO kept existing after the fall of the USSR, um, the fact that NATO kept existing after the fall of the USSR shows how Russia was going to mind was going to still be an enemy of the West even after the change on their mode of production. But yeah. Social support is not a bad thing. I don't. What do you mean social support is not a bad thing? What do you mean social support? But yeah, like that's like Russia is like more complicated in that sense, but I think a better examples are of Western Asia, like Syria, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, where like they defy the neocolonialism that the US wants to impose onto them, and shit goes down. Uh, or even Africa, I think Burkina Faso, or even Libya are great examples of how countries defying neocolonialism or colonialism or blatant colonialism, to be honest, like are ought to be punished by the West in general. You know, so yeah. Uh, I mean, like literally name a Pan-Africanist leader who hasn't been killed by the U.S., the West, NATO. Name any Western system. But yeah. Uh, I don't think social support is a bad thing. But what do you mean social support is a bad thing? Or uh, what did what did I say that made you think that? Yeah, I'm sorry. Or I mean, to be fair, Pan-Africanist or Pan-Islamist. But yeah. Drink water, everyone.
The US in foreign policy, it's not going to follow the same lines, but I think that relationship is always going to be there. I think they're definitely wary, they're definitely cautious, but in the end, I think the US is seeing that they can no longer use their same tricks. It would be interesting to look at what's happened in Honduras. The government of Xiomara Castro obviously put an end to 12 years of National Party rule supported by the United States, financed by the United States, made possible by the United States. They've maintained relationships with the U.S. government still, but they are implementing important changes. So I think it's a dynamic situation. There's no way to say what's going to happen, but it's, of course, I think this government is very clear that it is.
Oh my god. Thank you, Pak. Thank you for the raid. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, raiders. Hi, my name is Step. I'm a communist streamer. We're talking about Colombia's new president. Well, not new anymore. He's been in power for like a couple of months now. But yeah, welcome, raiders. Click the profile picture twice to make your view count. Thank you for a follow, Young Black Economist. It's nice to see you here. But yeah, we're talking about the changes that the new left-leaning Colombian president has been doing, and they are pretty good. Like, yeah. How was your stream, Zach? Hope it went well. Do I still have? Okay, yes. Hope it went well. What were you covering? Were you covering Australian news? uh, Australia doesn't exist. Okay, I will pause Colombia for a second. Why is there not a movement in Australia right now to be done with the fucking monarchy? Hello? Like Queen Elizabeth, Lizzie is dead. Like, come on, what's going on in Australia? Like, is it that difficult to say like, hey, she's dead, we can be free now, right? Everyone, Republican. Oh my god, yes. I mean, I don't know. It is so funny how Republican means different things. Like because of US hegemony, Republican means like conservative, but in the true meaning of the word, it just means like no monarchy, which should be a good thing. But yeah, but yeah, literally, why is no country in the what is it called? I always forget. The crown, the royal thingy. Um, yeah, you know what I mean. Yes, Commonwealth. Yes, Commonwealth. Why isn't no one in the Commonwealth being like, yeah, she's dead. Maybe we shouldn't be part of this monarchy in 2022. Wild thing to say. 21st century? Maybe we shouldn't have a monarchy. Uh, call itself that well after the US separated from the British monarchy. Interesting. I didn't know that. That's conservative for you. The UN was created to destroy colonialism. Ha, nice joke. The double down instead. Yeah, literally. But yeah. Also, Mr. Bolliard, if the UN nations was created to destroy colonialism, I don't think they would have assigned the first president of the UN wouldn't have been a Nazi. So, yeah, I don't think that was the actual intention behind creating the UN. You know, yeah, or like colon ill. Oh my god, stop. Oh, it is interesting because like recently Chile and a lot of other Latin American countries changed this like holiday. They changed it from the like it's like Colon Day. Basically, it was this holiday to celebrate the that Christopher Columbus came to America, to Abya Yala. And so like there was a lot of indigenous movements saying like fuck Christopher Columbus, we shouldn't have a holiday celebrating him and him like genociding millions of people. And the Chilean government recently changed that to the day of like indigeneity, multiculturalism, or something like that. And I think Mexico also changed it. I am going to assume that Colombia also changed it, and Argentina probably also, but I'm not sure. And I was like, I thought it was interesting because I don't think there's a holiday like that in Peru. but also if there is a holiday like that in Peru, I am just not aware of that, and I have never been aware of that. Like probably that they like exist in some text, right? But we have never celebrated that, and so yeah, like should there be a holiday celebrating indigenous people? Sure, but at the same time, like I don't know, I don't really care about like holidays. They're pretty like sure, and like they aren't doing anything, But yeah, at least in Peru we don't have the yeah, of course, like holidays, but having a holiday is way better than landback. It still has the Queen's birthday as a holiday coming up soon. Oh my god, I'm dead. Cracking down extra hard on free speech. For those publicly critical of the crown. I'm really interesting. Oh yeah, I know that the in the UK that is a thing that if you talk bad about the crowd and shit, like you are looked down. But I didn't know that also happened like in around the Commonwealth. Interesting. Also, I just want to share like this conversation I had with. Oh no, I didn't have a conversation. There was like I'm in a server. I'm in a gay server, and they made an announcement of like the queen has died. Rest in peace, Elizabeth II. A moment of silence. Literally, half of the reactions, fuck the queen, thumbs down, angry emoji, and they literally got rid of all the reactions except for the UK flag and like the red, white, and blue circle, and like stop allowing reactions to that post. And I was like, oh my god, dude, so reactionary. And so there's a politics section there, and I just wrote, fuck the queen. I'm glad she's dead. Fuck colonialism. And yeah. And and it's interesting because in another uh text text chat in that server, someone said the US sucks. And there were two people who replied to that saying, it doesn't. It's the best country in the world. And I replied to that, like, it does suck. It's a horrible country, and maybe it should start existing. It should stop. It is pure shit. And then one of them replied to me saying, you suck. And I replied, hell yeah, I suck a lot of fucking cock. But yeah. And they went silent. Okay. Best country at COVID death, literally. Don't tell Australia about my stream then. Oh my god. They're a peasant brain rot, literally. Oh my god. Heard that in the UK. Yeah, I know it's like a thing that people sometimes look down on people like talking shit about the queen or the crown. But yeah, cause there is I've heard this like theory that the only reason the UK keeps the monarchy is because that attracts tourism and keeps the economy moving. But I'm like, I don't think that makes that much big of a difference. But sure. But yeah. Italy is proven literally like what? And the union. Uh But yeah.
completely challenging the end to 12 years. It's not going to follow the same lines, but I think that relationship is always going to be there. I think they're definitely wary, they're definitely cautious, but
There's a roaring trade in Thatcher. In Thatcher is the devil, and only slightly less in the Queen was the devil. Interesting. Interesting. Maybe it's because I have only engaged with like liberal circles in the from the UK. Because I have actually never engaged with like leftist circles or like leftist stuff in the UK. But yeah, other than Novaram Media, but that's pretty radical. So yeah. Can people usurp all the hundreds of thousands of acres of land since still monarchy? Interesting. I don't know. They should probably be able to. For less than 10 million, the Queen used to defend the Peter. Oh my god.
Any good? Not a bit of good. Not a bit. I'd put a stake through her heart and garlic round her neck to make sure she never come back.
Isn't that a pretty horrible thing to say when her funeral's going on right now?
Too bad, too bad.
Oh my god, Queen! Yeah! Yeah!
Any good? Not a bit of good. Not a bit. I'd put a stake through her heart and garlic round her neck to make sure she never come
I
back.
literally don't understand anything she just said. I just understand this.
Isn't that a pretty horrible thing to say when her funeral's going on right now?
Too bad, too bad.
I literally don't understand most of the clip, just too bad, and I'm like, Queen, yeah! No, I had never. Oh my god. We were literally like. Too bad. Too bad. I would put garlic around her neck and stake her in the heart and make sure she never comes back. Oh my god, Vase. Thank you for the translation, Theo Duke. The Scots have even less precious. Oh no, yeah, of course the Scots are not going to care about monarchy. I'm talking about mostly England. Yeah, I guess I should have specified. I'm talking about the England, not the UK. But yeah. Also, can we just get rid of the UK already? Like literally, the Welsh that don't like being in the UK. Scottish people less. Don't even get me started in North Ireland. Hello? But yeah, like literally, fuck the UK. Something like she's not done a bit of good. I'll drive straight her through the heart and make sure she never comes back. Interesting. Welsh voted for Brexit. Oh my god, why? I don't even know what Brexit is. Just kidding, just kidding.
in the end, I think the US
Yeah, going back to Colombia, a more relevant country.
is seeing that they can no longer use their same tricks. It would be interesting
Nothing
to look
happened.
at what's happened in Honduras. The government of Xiomara Castro obviously put an end to 12 years of National Party rule supported by the United States, financed by the United States, made possible by the United States. They've maintained relationships with the US government still, but they are implementing important changes. So I think it's a dynamic situation. There's no way to say what's going to happen, but it's, of course, I think this government is very clear that it is.
Oh, I just want to mention quickly Honduras, 'cause I think it is pretty funny because like a leftist girl boss president came into power, right? And after her, I think I don't know if they actually killed her or attempted to kill her or something, but after her, the US literally put a puppet government of an actual liberal, like literally Thatcher girl boss president, and she undid almost everything that the leftist government did, and I was like, "Fuck you." But I think after that they are with a new leftist government, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it was pretty wild. Welsh independence is determinedly rallying call in some quarters, where it's much farther off than Scottish. Interesting, interesting. Yeah, because I had watched like one or two videos about like Welsh independence, and so I had the impression that it was popular, but it was a pretty biased video, of course. So interesting. Like I know in Scotland and Ireland, of course. Well, Ireland, I'm not sure. I'm still not sure of like Northern Ireland opinions, because I think it is pretty mixed. But I know for a fact that in Scotland they are more willing to get out of the UK. But yeah.
Completely challenging the interests of the ruling class in Colombia, the ruling class in the United States, and they know they have a lot of adversaries. The right wing in Colombia has been extremely reactionary on social media, launching a lot of different defamation campaigns, constantly barraging, leftist activists, trying to say that everyone is spies, sponsored by Cuba or terrorists, all that normal,
Typical stuff.
normal
It's like
stuff.
it is interesting because like right wing Colombian propaganda did not hold back when trying to braid Francia. Like I read shit that to I needed to refresh the page, and I literally needed to refresh videos, because the things that were written and said about her, I was like, this is illegal. I'm pretty sure this is illegal. But they just did not hold back on their racism and sexism. I was like, oh my god. But yeah.
But I think it's
It's a place that's proud of its own culture, got its own language stuff, but they've got their own regional assembly, like Scottish Parliament, and don't hear many people calling for it. Oh, interesting. The Black Number Party, the Party of the Wales in Welsh, don't get more than 2% of. Interesting. The only Francia I know is a boxed wine brand. Oh my god. Francia Marquez is the BP of Colombia. She's super radical. Like she's an activist. Like uh, fighting for like Afro-Colombian liberation. Like yeah, and so yeah, that's her name. And so because she's a black woman, like people didn't think twice to just go off in the most racist and sexist ways to like insult her character. But yeah.
clear that that's going to happen, and they have. I mean, what the elections show and what the uprising really showed in 2021 is that the people want change, and the change is going to happen. It has to happen. They can no longer tolerate a situation where the economy is so horrible, where unemployment is at such a bad rate, and so I think they're going to be, dealing with what happens as it goes.
Well, People's Dispatch, I know, is covering this and basically everything else very closely. Just for those who are watching, where can they find all the things that you all are doing?
So you can find us at peoplesdispatch.org, at People's Dispatch on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And, follow us on all those platforms. We also have a weekly podcast and show, Give the People What They Want, with Vijay Prashad, who's the director of Track Continental and the chief correspondent of Globetrotter.
New podcast alert.
Very good 30-minute summary of the week's news, check it out. Give us a follow. Share some love. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, give the people what they want, which also features Zoe and Prasant. Great show. Watch it. Anyway, as always, of course, Zoe, thank you so much for giving us some of your time here on the Freedom Side.
People.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh yeah, I shared it. Like I literally shared it last week. Here's this cyclical. Uh, oh, but it is here. Interesting. Okay.
Any good?
Not a bit of good. Not a bit. I put a stake
This is
through her
not
heart and
Prashad's
garlic around her
channel.
neck to make sure she never come
Sam.
back.
Isn't that a pretty horrible thing to say when her funeral's going on right now?
Too bad. Too bad.
But yeah. The last thing I wanted to cover was the recent announcement literally yesterday. Literally yesterday. Gustavo Petro announced that he would start the national dialogues, the regional dialogues, in order to like not have like in order to show that the government cares and wants to directly know what are the struggles and problems and issues of each regions and each peoples and each, you know. And again, this is something that was mentioned in the video that we just watched, and uh it was mentioned how there were peace talks that were going to start, and then one of the reactionary presidents literally canceled them internationally. But we have seen that that Petro has started the international talks, and he has just announced that he will start like local regional talks so peace can be fomented and etc etc. So yeah. Do you remember the past to repeat it, or do we repeat the past because we remember it? We remember the past. Thought interesting. I don't know. I feel like both because some people I don't know. Because I feel like there are some people who definitely repeat the past purposefully. You know? So, yeah. So a little over a month has passed since the government of 30 Days of Change began, elected by the people, where we have begun to build the foundations to transform Colombia into a country of total peace, said President Gustavo Petro. We began the tour We began to tour the country, to go where governments had never gone. We opened ourselves up to listen to all sectors, from poorest citizens and regional authorities to businessmen. This presidency was born from the popular will, and from that will, the most important document of our administration will be born: the National Development Plan, a roadmap that will guide the state's actions in the next 4 years. President Gustavo Petro invited in his speech the young, the old, and the old wise men, workers, and the businessmen, the women, the blacks, the indigenous people to participate in the 50 binding regional dialogues. Like, yes. So this is something that he recently announced. And about the okay, I gave a little bit of listen to businessmen, fascist confirmed. True, just kidding. Um, something else. Oh, what's happening with Blackpink? Hello, did the album drop? Oh no, it's just a delay poster. I don't know why they're. Sorry, I know we're talking about politics, but Blackpink is more important, okay? How dare you? Okay, bye. Just kidding. Okay, literally, who are they? They are not them. Okay, whatever. Oh yeah. So what he's doing with rising prices with oil and gasoline is not just to like incentivize people not driving cars, but also he's basically doing dong and shi in one, and he's like altering the market in order to stabilize it. And so he wants to raise the gas prices to see how everything else reacts. And based on that reaction, he's going to implement like subsidies, um, like business restrictions. He's going to like literally see what contradiction like this is literally what the article said. He's going to see what contradictions rise during this increase of gas prices in order to locate like the most um crisis sectors of the economy in order to balance out the economy. Like, if Dong was playing 4D chess, this guy is like playing 16-dimensional chess. He's like doing a checkmate in one move, which is like mind blowing. And like, I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I think that if he's so willing to do such a like I don't want to say revolutionary move, but such a intelligent but very bold move, like this man knows what's up. Like with the economy, with the social aspects internationally, like I am I might not need to move to China. I might just need to move to Colombia, honestly. Because, like, if this guy manages to bring peace to Colombia, Colombia is going to be like communism by 2030. But yeah. But you can't get a checkmate on the first turn. Shut up, Brett. Shut up, nerd. That's what they want you to think exactly. That's what you've been fed by the by the establishment and the elite. I heard that in Singapore, a 20K car costs 100K to keep driving to a minimum. Not sure how true it seems, but seems whack if so. Interesting. I mean, I feel like Singapore is too small of a country with too big of a population for that not to be true. International socialism will solve the problem if it's integrated into international trade with discounts. Yeah. Yeah, that's why he wants to like see how all the markets fluctuate based on that and like okay. I will open the article even though it's in Spanish. But I think I can uh, Because like he's literally saying he's going to increase the price of gas, which is going to increase the price of electricity, which is going to cause a problem, which he is going to resolve. And I'm like, so you're like literally doing like the dumb stuff, which is inject capitalism, but also as soon as the capitalism is injected, you are going to immediately like stabilize it and like want to mitigate that. And I'm like, it feels like doesn't make sense, but it makes so much sense. And I'm like, this man, I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing it. Uh, uh, because yeah, it is literally saying that the administration is like foreseeing this issue, and that is why they are doing it in order to like get rid of it. Hello? Okay, this is. Oh, this is what gave me the. Can I translate this? Petro also announced that the Ministry of Mines and Energy and the DIAN must establish effective controls so that the taxation and payment of royalties by oil companies is made on the actual amounts of extraction and export at international prices according, according to our radio version. So, like, this motherfucker is like thinking of everything. I am dead. I am dead. I am literally dying. I am so dead. Stream is over. No, but yeah, but yeah, like, girl. But yeah, okay. I've been streaming for 3 hours and a half. So if you are able to subscribe or give subs or share with bits, that would be much of a help for me, especially because I haven't streamed this first half of the month because I've been like with a sore throat and stuff. But yeah, so thank you everyone. Also, if you are able to join the Discord, because it's fun, and I sometimes stream movies, which are fun, and we shit on. We talk drama there. I don't know. Like hi Karen, welcome and welcome back, Julie. Yeah, I am leaving now. But yeah, join the Discord because that's where I announce when I stream because I don't have a set schedule. But yeah, you can always watch the bot. Don't worry. Also, I am thinking of, well, this was kind of the test stream, but I am thinking of leaning more towards like Latin American news in general. Um, I do want to still talk about theory every now and then. Oh, thank you, Jellyfish. Thank you for the 100 videos. And I love when people use the cheer modes because like the normal cheer emotes are pretty. They're not boring, but the cheer modes are fun. Um, but yeah, I don't have a schedule, but I am trying to lean more towards Latin American news because that's like my bread and butter. But I'm still interested in covering like theory, and we will still cover China every now and then and Africa, because Africa is important. And we typically will cover Africa with China because that's what people talk about. But yeah, I hope you had a great time here with me. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Join the Discord if you haven't. Follow me on Twitter. Because yes, I tweet good shit, okay? I mean, I feel like it's because I haven't been so active lately on Twitter, but uh yeah, lately I just haven't been receiving as much engagement. But yeah, I am sick of USA news, so I'm here for it. Yes. I am definitely like we might talk about the US every now and then if there's ever like something important or like anything related directly to Latin America or Africa, or if they make like a huge move against, yeah, I'm sorry everyone, or if they make a huge movement against China. Um, but yeah, don't worry. I will try to keep it at a minimum, but keep
Stop
it
making that
relevant
surprise
and
face. It's
stuff.
so annoying.
Thank you,
You can't
Jellyfish.
possibly be
Thank you
that
for
surprised all the time.
Jellyfish has gifted 1 subs to tier friends.
thank you for gifting the sub that went to Karam. I'm glad you went to Karam. You're charming and funny, and I'm so glad. Oh, thank you. I try to keep it interesting and stuff, But yeah, talking about my country of shit is fine. Just start. Oh no, yeah, I will definitely like not focus on it. Like, I will mention it because we live under U.S. hegemonic system. But yeah, uh, the the Brazilian election is next month, and I am practicing my Portuguese. And by practicing, I am trying to learn Portuguese because I know a couple of uh, Brazilian communist streamers. And so I would love to interview them. And I know that interview would be either like ideally it would be in English because I think some of them know English, but if not, I will still have the interview in Portuguese. And I know people don't understand Portuguese, but still, I think it is going to be super fun, and like I want to have like a lot of information about it. So like it will be probably like post election, but yeah. So goodbye everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Again, join the Discord if you haven't, because that's where I announce when I go live. Portuguese is horny Spanish, okay? But yeah, thank you everyone so much for coming. Thank you for the gifted subs and the cheer and the biddies. I love you all. Have fun with Marcus. I know I just said I'm not going to talk about US and I'm sending you to a US exclusive channel, but have fun with Marcus. If you are subscribed, you can copy and paste the first message. If you're not subscribed, copy and paste the second message. Okay. Bye. Ah.